What's up, guys? We are back with another review, and this one's going to be a bit of a big one. We might be in for a long haul here because Big Bad Toy Store decided to send over this stack, a literal stack, of 8 figures for Monster Force Wave 1. So this is their collaboration with the folks at Fresh Monkey Fiction, who are producing the figures, and then this is the Big Bad workshop thing that Big Bad Toy Store is doing with some smaller creators to make new lines, basically. So we've got 8 figures to talk about here, plus I might as well throw them in. I've got the 2 exclusives from Joe Fest that until now I haven't even opened also, so we might as well just do it all. Let's talk about 10 figures. So we've got 8 in the main line to talk about, and they all come in similar style packaging, which right off the bat, I really like this. It's familiar packaging if you're into other lines, but the feel on it is actually pretty nice. It's got a nice smooth matte finish, which is really doing it for me for some reason. And then each box is fairly similar in terms of presentation. So this, as our guinea pig, is Declan Van Helsing, one of the main characters, and he's plastered on the front. He's all over the back as well, and then the spine is going to give you a kind of bookend almost that showcases the name, the logos for everything, as well as a number. So it's numbered going through the line. He's number 1, and then you can pop that open. It's got some strong Velcro on it too. And then you've got a comic panel on the inside, and then you've also got the figure and all of his stuff, because these figures come fairly loaded, in the big window. So presentation on these is pretty nice to begin with, and especially if you're into keeping boxes, they do seem to store pretty well just because of the spine nature of things here. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. So for articulation, like I said, we're going to use a guinea pig figure and just kind of run through this once. They're all basically the same. The only real difference comes down to which figures have overlays or which have non-removable overlays, figures that have larger heads, things like that. Range is going to be slightly different on a few of them, but in general, they're all pretty much going to move like our guinea pig here. This is the Nocturnal Ops Trooper. So you've got a head that can look up really, really, really well. The head and the neck are independent from one another. They also look down really nicely, of course. You've got really good tilt side to side, like full-on attitude sass there. Arms go out at the shoulders. They swivel. You've got a good butterfly joint there. Bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows. Really, really good range. Pinless on everything here also. And then we've got hinges. You've got lateral hinges, rotation on these hands. These figures come with about 8,000 hands each, so you'll get varying types of hinges based on what they're for. The torso, I'll show you the full rundown here after we get through everything else, but this is how they're going to come out of the box. So you've got some forward and backward, you've got some side to side, you've got rotation. There is a ball peg waist, but there's also a diaphragm cut under there. Now this guy has this jacket on. He's got the armor. Some of the other figures have overlays. Some of them, like the Forgotten King, has like a full-on kind of like coattails jacket. So things are going to be a little bit different there, but you can take this off if you wanted to give him more range, and he still manages to look pretty good too. We'll get to that in a minute. Legs go out about yay far. They kick forward all the way. They do offer a little bit of a drop down as well. You've got a thigh twist up there. They go backwards a little bit. You got double jointed pinless knees, pretty good range there. And then you've got boot cut. Some figures don't have boot cut because they don't have boots. So you've got that little difference. And then you've got your rocker, and we've got hinges down here. Ankle range in particular, really good. Nice detents on these ankles too. They seem pretty sturdy. Haven't had any issues with anybody falling over. Now, as I mentioned, you can take the jacket off, the armor. There are pegs in this that allow you to pop this off, and then you can just sort of slide it off like that, and then you've got that. Easiest just to take the whole head and neck off, and then you've got your figure, and he still manages to look pretty decent like this too, I think. I'm happy with that, even if that was just the base loadout in some ways for maybe less armored troopers, but you do get the full experience of this joint here. So forward and backward, pretty good. Really nice tilt side to side, and then this of course offers a swivel. It doesn't do a great deal when that armor's on, but if you don't want to have it, if you want to, maybe, I don't know, unload a bit on these guys and make them a little bit more lightweight or less bulky, you can do something like that. So they do have a lot of potential, but of course armor is, as it happens in every other figure, it's just going to get in the way from time to time. So there is a lot of potential, really good range, and again, these things move really nicely, no heat needed. Everything feels nice and tight, but also very smooth. Now, as far as the actual figures themselves go, not just articulation, they're numbered on the boxes, so I'm just going to run through them in order. Declan Van Helsing here is number 1, and he's like a descendant of the Van Helsing line. He's somewhat responsible for unlocking Dracula in this story and fighting the Forgotten King, and where the monster force sort of comes from. He is, as a result of that, like a victim in many ways, because he's not necessarily as cool to me as any other figure in this wave. He's the generic guy, basically, which, you know, for your money might be okay. I think a military vampire is a little bit cooler than that, but this is a really solid figure. He is very similar build-wise to that Nocturnal Ops figure that I showed for Articulation. He doesn't have boots. He's one of the figures that doesn't have boots, so he has no boot cut there, that kind of stuff. But he looks really good. Everything is nicely sculpted, really well proportioned. I really like the tampoed tattoos on the forearms. They're like, one is like sort of like a biblical tattoo. There's like a cross and some sort of writing on there. And then the other one has this pretty gnarly looking skull. So that's kind of cool. He does have the same kind of like flak jacket and armor and chest piece. And again, you can take this off. So you pop it out. There's a peg here and you can pop it out. And if you didn't want him to wear that, you can go that route. What's really different about some of this stuff is how modular they made that armor, and we're going to talk about it more when we get to accessories, because that's what makes this figure a little bit cooler to me, is what you can change on him. Like all these pouches, they come off, and you can swap them out for different things. He's got other bits and bobs that can be put on to beef him up a little bit more. He is the standard figure in many ways, just by virtue of being a regular human, but he's still a really nice figure, and if you want to put him in other lines or other situations, I think this guy will be easily fudged into other places than maybe some of the other stuff here. And then he's got a really solid head sculpt. It's kind of a generic everyman action-y hero kind of guy, but it looks good, and I think this is photo printing. I don't know for sure, but it looks like it to me. It's got that little dot matrixy kind of look and feel to it. 5 o'clock shadow around the mouth looks really good. The scar is nicely done. He's got a little bit of gray hair up there, and the eyes are really clean, and more importantly, very straight and centered also. I really think he's pretty cool. Like, it's, again, starting off with maybe the least interesting one to me personally, but it's still a really well sculpted, nice painted figure with, you know, just generic military vibes. If you want to put him, you know, with this set of figures or anything else, he'd probably look all right with Valaverse and Classified and all sorts of that kind of stuff. However, he does come with about 8 billion accessories, which we definitely need to get into. Now for Declan's accessories, this is where things, well, for him and the rest of the line really kind of explodes, because they just have a lot of stuff. It is in many ways almost overwhelming, especially when you're opening 8 figures all at once. So to start with, he just has a whole bunch of stuff. He has tons of different pieces and bits and bobs because of the system they've got in place for the armor and this flak jacket. So he's got a bunch of hands. You've got gloved hands, you've got flesh hands, you've got over 10 hands here just by that alone. You know, you've got gripping hands, you've got trigger finger hands, you've got fists, you've got splayed finger hands, and then you've got them gloved and ungloved if you want to mix him up. Whatever you want to do, you've got that option. I mentioned that the actual armor here is modular, so all of this stuff on the top can come off. All of these pieces, they will twist and they will pop off. This array of pieces right here will come off. It is a little bit difficult sometimes to get them to come off, but you know, I'd rather these be too tight than too loose in many ways. They're just little pegs, and then you can change him up. So I've taken off what looks like magazines and clips and things like that, so you can do that. But then you've got another one. There's a different one that you can put on right there with shotgun shells and things of that nature. You've got like a walkie-talkie that can peg in there, because like these little pouches, they can come off. He's got a hole on the back that's going to be removable. You've got a handheld, like sort of satellite phone almost. We've got other little canisters. Some of the other figures have these. So like this one, you could replace something there. You've got grenades. You could pop those on as well. So if you want to change up some of what this looks like, you can do that. He's also got this side leg armor. So I've already got one on him here. It just slides up the thigh. This has got like crossbow bolts on it. And then it's modular also. So both of these can utilize different things. So you can put, say, this little knife sheath on there. And then you can slide this up on his leg. And then you can put a knife or whatever you want, or another clip. That's not going to be for a knife, but you can put something in there. So you've got storage. You've got a holster for guns that you can put in one of those as well. And then you've got even more stuff. There's all sorts of little pieces. I don't even know what this is. Like, I don't even know what that is. I have no idea. So there's a lot of different things that you can use to make him modular, make him changed up. And then you've also got weapons. The one thing that this guy doesn't have, compared to I think almost every other figure, he doesn't have an extra head sculpt, but you get 8,000 other accessories. So he does have multiple guns. He's got a pistol. He's got an even smaller pistol. He's got a knife. He's got a crossbow, which is really cool. This thing looks great. Tons of weathering, nice detail all over it. Like, it looks really good. I will mention that the folks over at Gridiron Studios did, I think, a lot, if not all of the weaponry for this line. You know, they're very big in the custom weapons game when it comes to figures. So, you know, check them out, but you're going to see their work in this line. And then he's got this really rad machine gun with the bayonet on the end. I love this gun. Tons of sculpt and a great deal of paint on this thing also. Really neat. And he also does include energy effects. So you've got a handful. You've got just sort of standard blasts, really. You've got like this one right here, this little one. And these can go in like the barrels of the gun. You've got this larger blast. And we're going to see these again with other figures also. There's a smaller one. And then you've also got, I always love this, the little wisp of smoke that you can put in the end of a gun. So you can do that. And then the one thing that every figure has that you're going to see across the board, they do include stands. They are Monster Force emblazoned on the top, and then they're all labeled with the respective figure's name as well. So the whole line comes with a ton of accessories. Declan might be an outlier in that he includes maybe a little bit more than most, but this is what you can basically expect to see as we go through this entire wave of figures. They are packed to the gills, again, with almost, I'm saying almost, too much stuff. Next up, we've got numbers 2 and 3. This is number 2 here. This is our Urban Ops Trooper. Number 3 is the Nocturnal Ops Trooper. And these guys are essentially the same figure, just with some slight variations. Same head, same overall body, basically. So you've got the second figure here, which is the Urban Trooper. And of course, this is one of the actual, like, obviously vampiric style figures. So he's got an exposed vampire head. He's got this sort of navy blue, kind of light on the paint ops outfit. He does have the same kind of like flak jacket body armor that Declan Van Helsing has. And just like his armor, all of the bits and bobs and everything are removable. So like all of the magazines and clips, the little canisters, they can come off. You can remove the whole thing. The whole 9 yards, you know, switch it around, mix and match these. If you want to change the colors and combination of pieces there, you can do that. And then we've got our Nocturnal Ops, which is definitely, you know, the same body, but he is a different paint job through and through. He's got a different skin tone. He's, well, what you can see anyway. He's got fully camoed out outfit there. And of course, all of his armor and flak jacket and every little accoutrement there are all different colors also. He also has different forearms. He has this sort of like, I don't know, techno gauntlet kind of thing where the other guy does not. But they are very similar, so I figured we'd just take a look at them at the same time. For the sake of, well, time. I do really like this figure. This is one of the more standard army builder figures in the wave. Army builder figures, I suppose, because there are two, but they're a little bit more, you know, boots on the ground kind of figure. They're not some of the specialized troopers that we'll see at the back half of this wave. But I really like this head sculpt. I think it's really well done. The little scowl and grimace that this guy has looks really great. Of course, you could put this head on other bodies if you want to make somebody else a vampire in this particular fashion. And then, like I said, you can take off all this armor, have him be a little bit more mobile without as much stuff on him, or you could mix and match those pieces and take the whole thing off, swap them around, whatever. And then, of course, they do both, just like Declan, come with like a billion accessories. Now, as far as accessories goes for these two, it's very similar stuff that we got with the Declan Van Helsing figure. The difference comes down to like a few small things, as well as an overwhelming difference when it comes to color, palette, and just that kind of thing. A lot of reuse, a lot of repaint kind of stuff here. They all seem to go together. They both come with the same set of hands. You're going to find obviously some different colors throughout this kind of stuff, but it's all the same parts. So you get a set of style posy gripping, grasping hands, you get a set of fists, and you get a set of trigger finger hands to go along with the set of gripping hands. So they both have 8 total hands. They both also come with 2 heads beyond the vampiric head. So we've got like the riot head on the Nocturnal Trooper with that sort of skull painted on there. It's got a moving face shield. You also get an alt face shield for this. Both of them include that. This is what it looks like. And then you get this more like, I guess, tactical kind of helmet. And they are the same. So you both figures have this. They're just different colors. They all come with all of the bits and bobs and doodads that go all over the vest and the pouches. So they come with the holsters, they come with the sheaths, they come with the cell phones, they come with the grenades, they come with the different loadout pieces for the armor. They come with, the little pouches and things that go on the knees and on the legs and on the back. Some other stuff that they include that Declan doesn't, though, is they include what looks very riot gear-like. They have these shoulder pads that can go on there. And then the Urban Trooper also has what I believe are supposed to be elbow pads. There's 2 of these, and that's really the only place they seem to go. I'm not a big fan of them because they do impede articulation slightly, but you've got options. If you want to bulk these guys up, you absolutely can. I mean, the Nocturnal Trooper almost looks like a different figure to me once he has all this stuff on, which I suppose if you're in army building is a really good thing. They both include multiple pistols, they both include the knife, and then they both include the machine gun in a slightly different color scheme. So the Urban Trooper has like a darker brown, and the Nocturnal Trooper has a lighter brown. Otherwise, overwhelmingly, a lot of the same stuff that we saw with the Declan figure. Again, they all go together, so it does make sense to me that they would include similar stuff. And being that they are the same type of thing, it makes sense that they're going to have the same stuff there too. Again, we get the stands. Theirs both say Delta Red because that's like the faction that they're in. Delta Red Nocturnal, Delta Red Urban, basically. So they have, again, I don't want to say it negatively, but they almost have too much stuff. This is incredibly overwhelming to go through all this stuff. I love all the options. There's a lot of different ways to kit these 2 figures out for sure and change them up, make them bigger, make them bulkier, or make them more sleek if you want and take everything off. There are a ton of options here. Number 4, and the figure that brings us to the halfway point here, is Dracula himself. So this kind of also bridges away from the figures that are like Declan and those 2 troopers and brings us into figures that are covered in an overlay over top. So while these are all the same kind of figure underneath, they all have that same articulation. From Dracula here on out, I believe, unless I've got these mixed up, they do have overlays. So he is like a very stereotypical high society, very well-dressed Dracula, which I kind of like. He's not so unique to this particular line that you can't put this figure anywhere else. I feel like he's going to go well with Classified or like with Marvel Legends, things like that. He is obviously a vampire. He very much flows with those 2 troopers because of the skin tone, his face, but he's clearly, maybe something a little bit more impressive or important than just a regular vampire. So he's got kind of the long flowing jacket. He's got the suited arms. The one thing that I'm not the biggest fan of, and it's like a super minor gripe, but it's something that I just feel compelled to point out. This guy and the Forgotten King both kind of share legs with everybody else, and they don't have like tactical gear on, right? So they don't have anything like that, but you've got like these like pouches on these legs. Like these kind of pants, I'm not sure would have this sort of pouch or piece of weaving right there, whatever you would want to call it, that material. So it's kind of an odd thing that it somewhat irks me, but it's the stupidest, most minor gripe. Otherwise, I think he looks pretty good. The head sculpt is the big draw for this figure beyond the accessories, which we'll get to here in a second. But the figure itself, I think, looks great. Paint is pretty decent. He doesn't have a ton on him, but he's got some pretty wild tampo work on that vest. He's got some on the actual jacket itself. And then, of course, the head sculpt is really where all the action is for him. He's got a, very classic mullet Dracula look. He's got the pointy ears. He's got a beard and mustache. He's got some ghoulish looking flesh, and he's got some really piercing red eyes, which I think look great in contrast against his very pale skin. So he maybe isn't the most flashy figure compared to a lot of the tactical troop building type of figures here, but I think this guy offers nice variety within this line and without also, if you want to, sort of fudge them in somewhere else. I did mention that there were exclusives for some of these figures also. I figure we'll just sort of touch on them briefly. Dracula and the Forgotten King both have an exclusive. They came out at Joe Fest earlier this year. They're just sort of translucent, early figures just to get something out there. It's just a figure in red, so clear red plastic. He doesn't do anything beyond that. He's got the same kind of accessories and that kind of stuff. But if you wanted to swap out a translucent red head, if you've got this, or the hands, all of that stuff is interchangeable. I do love this kind of stuff. I'm a sucker for translucent figures, and it's kind of cool to get that a little bit early. But I think the finished product, the real Dracula, especially when I get a close look at that face and that head sculpt, is really, really doing it for me. Now, as far as accessories goes, at least compared to the rest of the wave, Dracula is the one that comes in a little bit on the light side. That said, he still comes with a decent number. It's just not like 50 different pieces. So he has some extra hands to begin with, and it's fewer than others, but it's still 8 total. So you get, in his sort of vampiric skin color, you've got fists, he's got gripping hands, you get trigger finger hands, even though he doesn't include a gun. If you want to give him one, you can, and then you get the sort of grasping, splayed finger kind of hands. He does include an extra head sculpt, and it's not the biggest change, but it's impactful, I think. You do get a snarling, sort of menacing showing of the fangs kind of head sculpt. A little bit more of a furrowed brow, so he's definitely in a battle type of posturing, or he's at least pissed off about something. So you do get 2 head options with this guy. And then the last thing he comes with, outside of course, our ever-present stand for these figures, he does include a sword, which has kind of like a draconic type of hilt, and then you've got a silver blade. So just gold and silver. He is a little bit on the light side compared to others, but this is okay for me. Maybe a blood effect of some kind would have been kind of cool, especially because there's so many other effect parts in this line. But I think at face value, especially when you're taking the wave as a whole, he still comes with a decent amount, despite the fact that it's less than a lot of these army builders. Now we're going to do some size comparisons, kind of like a little break in between figures, so we've got half the wave taken care of. We'll get to the other 4. So let's talk about how these figures size up. We're going to keep going with Dracula. These are all basically the same size, so you can interchange any figure. We've got a classified figure here on the left, this Crimson Viper, and then we've got, just because, well, they're handy, there's one of the NECA wrestling turtles, there's Raphael. These guys are going to mesh really nicely with your standard 112 figures. I don't Valaverse, so I don't have any of those, but you can use this as a guide to see exactly how these are going to stack up. Let's move Raph aside, and here's a Marvel Legends. Here is the current Wolverine, our Astonishing Wolverine. Let's move our Viper aside, and here is a Mezco. There's Mezconan. Let's get Wolverine out of there, and here is a Cosmic Allegiance for some Legion representation. Of course, these are obviously in a different scale, so they're going to be bigger. Let's do an SH Figuarts. So here is Superhero Piccolo. And then let's do one more. Let's do an Ultimates figure. Here is Super 7 Shredder. So as you can see, these guys are standard 112, like what you expect to get from Valaverse, from Hasbro figures, things like that. They're going to mix in with lines in similar styles and sizes really, really well. Now into the back half of this wave, this is number 5. This is the Forgotten King, and he is like the big bad, the reason that Monster Force exists, etc., etc. So this guy is like an Egyptian sorcerer, and he's back, and he's got powers, and he's got a really nifty and very bright white suit. So this guy is like Dracula, one of those figures in the wave, and pretty much the rest of the wave from here on out have overlays over top. So while he does have all of that articulation, that upper body is going to be a little bit limited. What I really like, though, is this white suit that he has. It is super, super bright, very, very stark white. There's not a lot on it in terms of painted detail. He has gold buttons and things like that. And then you've got the flesh tone hands. He does have, probably the one thing that I don't like about his design is his pants are the same pants, the same legs, basically, that you see on like the troopers. So I don't know if I really like that. I would have preferred him to have different ones. You can sort of see it because he's got these like stirrup pieces right here. Like this, it's the same legs on the figures. I feel like he probably should have had a different set of legs, but I kind of understand also why he doesn't. What really is the big draw for this figure, beyond some of the wild accessories that we'll get to, is of course this head sculpt. So it's a very modern, almost alien, kind of Stargate-y Egyptian style hood. So we don't actually have his head right now. We've got just this helmet thing, and I really like it. The color scheme is great. The paint is really nicely done. It's got some muted gold, but there's also some more lustrous gold, and then you've got all those blue highlights in there as well. So he's a little bit of a difference from pretty much the rest of the line. Even Dracula has some similarities to other figures here. This guy really does stand out just because he is, separate. He's his own thing for now. And like with Dracula, he did also get an exclusive at Joe Fest, so I figured we might as well just talk about this while we're here. It's the same figure, it's just cast in a translucent-ish, bluish green plastic. It does also glow blue, so it will glow. It's not super, super bright. It gets pretty bright, but blue plastic isn't necessarily the brightest when it comes to that, so it does do a pretty decent job, and it also kind of showcases his power as well. Of course, parts are swappable. If you want to take that head and put it on there, you can easily do that. I really like this figure. He's obviously different from the rest because he's a suited figure. He's not an army guy. He's not a vampire. He's something different, but it does help add a little bit of variety in this line as well, while still being, very familiar to everything else so far. Now for the King's accessories, he has similar but different types of stuff compared to everything else in this wave, just because he is, well, he's different. So he has a million hands like everybody else. He has maybe even more just because of what he is. So you get fleshy hands, so you get fists, gripping hands, you get splayed finger hands. You get the same thing in white. So glove, these are reused from other figures. So you get gripping hands, you get fists, you get splayed finger hands, but he also includes some unique hands. He's got this like, flat palm hand. He's got gripping hands. He's got splayed finger hands, but these are all done up in translucent blue, which kind of correspond to that blue figure, the blue version of him that was the exclusive. He also includes these big energy effects, which I absolutely love these. These will go around his wrist, before the hand. You get 2 of these. And then he also includes, I guess this is his signature weapon, this is his staff. It obviously goes with his motif, so it gives you a similar vibe to his helmet, his mask, but there's some skulls in there. It's obviously got some Egyptian influence. Paint and sculpt on this is terrific. This might be my single favorite accessory in the wave so far. The only other kind of odd thing he gets this as well, and I can't tell if there's any difference between these two. He comes with 2 of these base pieces. This is modular, like this comes off. You have to put it together. So this comes in like this and you just pop it in, but I'm not sure why you need a second one. So either I'm doing something wrong or you can do something, what we might be learning as we go. You could do something like this, I suppose, and have it be double bladed if you wanted it to do that. So you've got that option there. Maybe that's what it's for, something like that. We're learning as we review. That's the way it goes sometimes. So this is pretty cool. I don't know if this is exactly what's intended, but at minimum, you have 2 different ways to display this. And then just like everybody else, like I'm going to say 8 different times, he does include his stand. Now we're going to round out the wave with the final 3 figures. And just like the first 2 army builders, numbers 2 and 3, 6, 7, and 8 in this wave are all essentially the same, mostly. Obviously the colors are different, heads are different for now, but these guys all have the same base things going for them. So they've got the overlays, and then they're all what are called Sleepwalkers in this line. So you've got number 6, which is the heavy Sleepwalker. We've got number 7, which is the Crimson Sleepwalker, and number 8 is the Obsidian Sleepwalker. So these guys all have one overwhelming characteristic for them, and without outright saying it, they look very Wolfenstein to me, if you get what I'm saying, which I think works really well. And quite honestly, after we go through accessories on these, I think you might understand why these are my favorite figures in the wave so far. There's a lot of cool stuff beyond just the figures in general, but I really like these, despite the fact that they have the torso overlay. It does, of course, impact that diaphragm cut, but overwhelmingly, these guys are really nicely done. I love the fact that they're relatively interchangeable in terms of, just what they offer. They're all basically the same, just different colors. You've got a black one, a green and gray one, and then you've got a dirty up red one right there, which I think look really cool next to each other. But if you end up with squads of these, I think they're going to look pretty great on the shelf. I do like the overlays on these. They look like they're officers in some way, or they're maybe a little bit more specialized than just your normal boots on the ground soldiers. So that's pretty neat. And then you do have some pretty solid sculpt work, pretty decent paint work, especially on the Crimson one. I really like the weathering on his outfit to make it look a little, dirtied up and nasty. But the heads on these guys are pretty impressive. My least favorite is going to be the Obsidian one. I'm just not the biggest fan of that design, but it does look fairly cool, and you get other heads like this with some of these other figures also. I much more prefer these two. The Crimson one in particular, I think really works. That shock of white on the face and the gas mask really makes him look just menacing and absolutely like something you would not want to encounter anywhere. And then the heavy gunner also has a very, very steampunkish look to him. He's got, sort of like a grenadier's helmet on. He's got this very steampunky sort of gas mask going on. And then those green eyes really pop out just a touch compared to the very muted olive style green that this guy has. So these guys, again, a lot of parts reuse, a lot of sharing across these 3 figures, but for a line that's built on army building, not really a concern for me. It goes to show exactly how far-reaching just a color palette swap is to change up a figure. I think it looks great in black, green, or red. I think, again, the red one's probably my favorite in general, but I'm overall very, very happy with these, especially just seeing what's capable of being done with these figures just by changing them up a little bit, putting a different head on them, or changing their color. And then rounding out the wave, we've got our accessories for the 3 Sleepwalker figures. These guys are very similar even when it comes to accessories, but there is a lot of modularity and customization, we'll say, similar to the other troopers and Declan Van Helsing, but in a very different way with these three. So they all, of course, come with stands, and their stands call them the Sleepwalkers because that's like the little sub-faction that they're a part of. So they all have the stands, of course. They all come with extra heads also, but they don't all come with the exact same thing. So our Crimson Trooper comes with all 3 heads. So all 3 of these just done up in his color scheme. You can see those here. So you've got the gas masky one, and then you've got the one that the Obsidian Trooper wears. The Heavy Gunner comes with all 3. So you've got the same one that the Crimson Trooper wears. You've got the same one that the Obsidian Trooper wears. The Obsidian Trooper only comes with 1 extra head. He comes with the one that the Crimson Trooper has on. You could mix and match these to some degree. I think the Obsidian and the Crimson have some customization there in terms of just being able to reuse each other's parts. The green one probably won't work as well. What's really cool about some of these, though, is that on the Crimson helmet and the Heavy Gunner helmet, they have these little nubs on the front that pop off. Both of them do. The Obsidian one doesn't have them, but it has something else we'll talk about that allows all of these tubes to be connected. Like I've got the Heavy Gunner with a tube going to his backpack. So they all also include these backpacks, which look terrific. They're very steampunky. They have a bunch, and I really can't stress this enough. I'm honestly not sure how many each one of these have, but they've got all these little bits and bobs. I've never had something with a figure that really worked with that phrase, bits and bobs, until now, because this literally is like decoration for these backpacks. You can put little extensions on, you can put little valves and nubs on, you've got whatever this thing is supposed to be that connects stuff together. You've got this one, which is what I've used here to wrap the tube from the back to the front. And they do include a bunch of those. Each one of them includes 3 different sets of tubes. You get 6 total. You get 2 short, you get 2 long, and then you also get 2 medium size to help you connect things. Because all the guns also have ports, and then all the backpacks have ports, and 2 of the heads have ports. So there's a lot of possibilities with those tubes. They all include 6 extra hands. So you get, it's the same kind of loadout as the other figures. You get the splayed finger, you get the trigger, you get the fist, and then they all came with gripping hands on them. They all come with secondary guns that look like this. The Heavy Gunner's his secondary gun is green. This one here. So you get a green one, and then you get 2 reds, red and red, well, black and red, I suppose. And then they also come with, larger guns as well. So I've got the Obsidian Trooper with the small one here. I've got the Crimson Trooper with the bigger one. So this guy and this guy both share this gun. This one's great. I really like it. It has a port for the tube. It's very, Wolfenstein kind of keeps coming to mind when I look at these guys. And it's got tons of paint and great sculpt work on it. But obviously, this monster gun is really what's drawing the focus right now. The Heavy Gunner, the Heavy Trooper, has this enormous energy rifle thing that is really cool. It also has ports for the tubes, so you can put one in there, you can put 2 in, there's one on both sides, and it's enormous. You definitely need 2 hands to keep this one up, but he holds it really well, and the splayed finger hands really help to hold that barrel at the end also. What they also all include are these little pouches on the side here, these little emblems you can put on, so they've each got one that you can slide up their sleeves, and then they've also all included energy effects. Crimson and Obsidian include red ones, so you get this sort of lightning one. And then we get the other ones that we've seen before. So you get just the normal blasts, but they're done up in red. So you get 3 of those. And then we also get this one, which up until now, I'm honestly still not sure what it's for. This one, maybe like a muzzle flash of some kind. There's a hole in it, which makes me think that one of the smaller effects is supposed to go through it, but I can't get it to actually still peg into a gun once it's all together. So I'm not really sure if that's what the intent is, and I've yet to really find anything that shows what it's supposed to be. They also all include the little wisp of smoke as well. The Heavy Gunner includes all the effects, but his are green. So if you get him, you get a different set of colored effects, which is pretty neat. Again, these guys are probably my favorite figures in this wave so far, and I really think it's come down to exactly all this. All of these accessories, all this little modularity stuff, like the ability to pop these little things off the masks to put the tubes in there, is really cool. It's just another little thing to make you be able to customize these figures, make them look even a little bit more unique than they already do, and make the squad that you might build stand out from figure to figure rather than them all being cookie cutter the same. They can be very similar, but they can also be very different at the same time. So I think from an accessory standpoint and just from a general, fun factor standpoint, these are the figures for me when it comes to this wave so far. So yeah, overall, unsurprisingly, I'm really happy with these. Honestly, I'm a lot happier than I expected to be. I just wasn't sure I needed more army guys, but this is a little bit different, obviously, right? There's a monster, undead kind of element to these figures, which makes them different enough from things like Valaverse or Classified series stuff that maybe you'll be interested in these too. They're put together incredibly well. The sculpt is terrific. I love a lot of this removable armor. The paintwork is really well done, and there is a lot of it here. And then, of course, you know, like I've said, there is a ton of accessories just included with every single figure. In many ways, there are almost too many accessories with some of these, but for some folks, obviously, that's not going to be a problem. I love to get more for my money, obviously, and I think they have included a lot with every single figure, from heads to 8 million hands, guns, effects, the whole 9 yards. A lot of crazy stuff with these figures. I love the undead element. I like the monster theme. I love the Forgotten King's head sculpt, the energy effects. I really like a lot of this non-standard military stuff that they've crammed into this military style line. So if you're interested in these at all, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. This is definitely going to come as kind of a surprise to a lot of folks, I think, just how much fun you're going to get out of these figures. So that's going to do it for this look at the Fresh Monkey Fiction Big Bad Workshop Monster Force Wave 1. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.